Yeah, she'll really want it after she's leaving the
Position didn't go through IT either. But then, I guess on the other hand, what then what does go to
Yes, update.
I think there should be some discussion with the people involved.
6 o'clock, I'll bring the Community and Economic Development Committee to order. First item on the agenda is the First Energy easement update for the LG Chem property.
So we had a second meeting with First Energy. They actually located, they marked in the grass where the poles would be. They will be on the west property line of our property at the GE water tank, which is better than the east side of the property. And they are working on the easement language, updating the easement language from where it was before. Originally, I worked out a $30,000 agreement that they would pay us. That agreement is still in place, but I've committed the $30,000 to ICP, the property to the west. I don't have anything formal. We're hoping to have it for Monday night. Hopefully by the end of this week I'll have it, and they would request that we have a special council meeting Monday night after the finance meeting.
Okay. Any questions, concerns? Move it forward.
Absolutely.
Next item on the agenda is the Spring Seal tax abatement. They are looking to acquire property to expand and build new. This would bring in approximately 10 full-time new positions. The new hires they would begin the hiring process for the new positions January of 2025, and hopefully have all 10 new positions added on by the end of 2028. It's just a tax abatement on the portion of the new build and expansion of the current business.
So in the packet, there are 2 pages missing. I was wondering if there was just because there wasn't anything interesting on them, or, but it goes from page 1 to page 4. And that's, starting on page 4, it seems like that's where all the details are about how many employees and, how payroll and how much money they're going to be spending.
So you're saying you don't have 2 and 3?
Yeah. Oh, okay. You do? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
You want to look at them real quick, Rob?
Yeah, let me take a quick look. Is there anything interesting on there? Oh, yeah, I was going to ask how many employees they have, so they currently have 60 full-time, 1 part. Okay, so this is a bigger operation than I thought it was. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy, Tim?
I'm good.
Anything further? All right, we'll move that forward. The RLF administration agreement, this is housekeeping. This is every other year. The city has to go into an additional or a new contract with the state to administer the RLF funds. And this is for the the CDBG Economic Development Funding RLF, to be specific. Any questions, comments?
No changes on
No,
any? Okay.
none that we know of. They haven't come out with the new draft. That's why we have the last one that was signed is in the packet from last year. They are in the process of doing the draft, and if you look in our packet, it has the email from the state, ODOD. Typically, it's very common that these contracts have to be signed prior to them coming out with the new updated versions, but it's very little that they ever change, if anything. And it's mandatory in order to hold and utilize the revolving loan funds. The state mandates that we do have these contracts in place. So, if there's nothing else, move it forward. Okay. The balance of home RLF funds, there's a little over 200,000. I'm not sure exactly what the year-to-date is on the balance of the home RLF funds. Going back to when, in the spring, we talked about the state was starting to mandate that the revolving loan funds be used as part of a CHIP program for future CHIP applications. So NDS is asking us to allocate the remaining balance of the home RLF funds to go ahead and be used for owner-occupied housing rehabilitation as it currently is with the CHIP program. And this will supplement for the 14 applications that they currently have on the waiting list until the next round of CHIP grant applications comes through.
So if the money goes over to the CHIP program, no longer in the revolving fund, what misses out from the revolving fund where we might put that money in the future?
With the home funds, nothing. The home funds are restricted to do owner-occupied housing rehabilitation, down payment assistance, AC rehab with rehabilitation. So it's all home programs that are any of the home eligible programs that are eligible in the CHIP program are the only items that your home RLF is eligible for. And that's what they're asking us to utilize it for, is to continue with the owner-occupied home rehab program. They currently have a waiting list. If the balance is, say, $260,000, then each home rehab is roughly anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000 max. So it would get eaten up very quickly, and we would still have the waiting list.
And when the money comes out, then how is the revolving loan fund replenished then?
It's currently a 75% forgiven over 5 years, 25% due upon sale or transfer of title. The state makes changes, different rounds of CHIPS. They make different policy changes. We've had it 100% recapture back in the day. We've had it 80%, 20%, with 20% due
So you
upon
don't
sale.
know how much money will be coming back?
It's whatever policies. And eventually, the state is going to mandate that it's all expended and there is no recapture on those.
Okay.
Anything else? Are you guys okay with moving that forward to continue the program? And anybody have any management updates for CED? With that, I will adjourn at 6:08.
Moving right along at 6:08, I will call Public Health and Safety Committee to order. We did have an added item to the agenda that was added on by police, and that's at the bottom. Number one, we're going to talk about is accepting a $1,200 donation grant money, rather. It's money that we're accepting from the Division of EMS. Originally, the grant that we received was for $300. So they have allocated us more money, and that's really all it is. So it's just accepting the appropriation and taking their money. No match of any sort, just receiving the additional funds, which we're happy to do, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
Matt, Rob, you okay with that?
It's reimbursable, so we don't, they changed the way they do it, so you're not receiving a check anymore. You have to show expenditure and then get reimbursed.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay, next item is going to be presented by Tim, our new service director in the making. It's called the Civic Ready Notification System, and I'm going to turn this over to Tim. I think everyone's going to really like this.
Yeah.
I support it.
Hello, everyone. We've been talking for a while now, emergency alert system for the city. I've been actually looking at it for quite a while and have been doing a lot of research on companies in the area, not in the area. And I've looked at one, and one is very impressive to me. Civic Ready is an emergency alerting system. that is an online-based system. It's a software program that empowers municipalities to communicate to residents using a mass notification system. This system is used to send emergency alerts and other notifications to residents via phone call, text message, and/or email. This system is an opt-in system. Residents can opt in to it if they would like. If they don't have to. Some people don't like being notified of anything, so it's up to them. Examples of messages sent through the software program of this Civic Ready program are emergency alerts, which would possibly be like water main break, boil alerts, active shooter, shelter-in-place alerts, chemical spills, train accidents of the sort, et cetera. Other messages that can be sent are city events, including like Luna Fair, Art on Main, Car Show, Midnight Madness, and others. You can also send general alerts through the system, which are road closures, paving, and water line projects. Let people know, our residents know what's going on in their areas. What's good about this system too is you can take this system and actually notify a certain area of the city, whether it be Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4, or just say Riddle. You can just notify everybody on that street, which is nice.
And it can be by phone?
Sure, by
and,
phone, email,
emails, right, okay.
text message, anything.
So they can choose which one they want.
Exactly.
individually.
Yep,
And
exactly.
they can also opt into certain types of alerts, right? Like if
Sure.
They don't want to get like, city events, but they want to get emergency stuff, they can do that.
Right, they can do that, yeah, and they can do that only. I mean, there's a lot of different things that this offers. I mean, it even offers Parks and Rec notifications if we want to do that. I mean,
It could be
it's,
an option.
we can also put on automated weather alerts from the National Weather Service if we really want to, for like tornado warnings.
And that's something I think would be standard too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you're gonna have emergency, that should fall under it. What is the cost for the system?
The cost for the system is $7,000 for the first time getting the software up and running for the first year. Every year after that, it would be $6,000 a year.
And you were saying if we do it now?
Yeah, if we sign a contract before January 1 of 2024, we'll get a 25% discount on that $7,500. So that'll go down to right around $6,000 for the startup fee and for the first year.
How would you be notifying residents of their options?
That's what we need to talk about. We need to make sure we send out, probably within the water bills, notifications and instructions on how to do that. We'd also put it online on our website. If we had a Facebook, that would be another avenue to do that.
Even the Portager, the paper?
Sure,
you know,
absolutely.
Those would be information. I know we've all talked about this, and as council, this council's always wanted better forms of communication. I think this is another step in being proactive, especially with all the different emergencies that we are seeing, becoming more common, unfortunately, especially with water leaks and stuff, or water breaks. I mean, I think, not everyone thinks about going online to say, oh, is my water, safe to drink today, or on social media, and if they get a text, people are
Right.
more prone to look at their phone. So the funding you talked about, would this all come out of the general fund, or how is this considered, Brian, would this be a breakdown, or one area?
Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit. I think we'd probably break the cost down depending on how we were going to use it. So, there would be some that might go to utilities because we could do water breaks and all
Right.
that. There'd be some that might, if Parks and Rec, we chose to use that
Sure.
part of it, might.
I think it would come out of every fund, a little bit out of every
And then we
fund.
might have a general fund, there's a general admin line that we could use that would include, our general fund departments and stuff like
Right.
that. So I think there'd be some kind of split. Exactly how, we'd have to determine, if this one's maybe 10% and this one's 20, depending
Right.
on.
So again, this is another example of our city going forward with communication and how we communicate and being proactive. I'm for it personally. I think it's a great idea. I think the cost is reasonable. And I also think that, I think residents would opt to choose it personally, if they know about it. That's, my own opinion. Matt and Rob on this committee, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think so. Do you know if it has any interoperability with our wireless downtown?
I would assume it probably does, but that's a question I'll ask them.
I mean, it'd be interesting if, it could pop up on someone's phone.
Sure.
Even if they didn't opt in.
Well, that's a question,
was
that's a good
a-
question, because, I mean, if they don't have a wireless, I mean, I don't know. They would have to go,
Well-
have to go through landline or something
No,
like that.
yeah, I understand that. I'm just
Sure.
saying, a lot of, say, Art on Main is going on and then
Sure.
there's some emergency, it'd be nice to be able to get that information out really quickly.
Absolutely. So I would assume it would. I mean, I would say, I mean, in this day and age, I would think so, but I'll ask, for sure.
Matt?
Yeah, no, I support it. The more information we can get out to the residents, the better.
Okay.
I like it.
Well, thank you, Tim,
Thank you.
for this information. We're
Appreciate
gonna
it.
go ahead and move it forward, and
Sounds
I
good.
appreciate the research and bringing this forward.
Thank you for your time.
Yep. Okay, last item on the agenda is dispatch contract with Marlboro Township Fire Department, and that is Chief Wallace.
So in July, we began discussions with Marlboro Township there in Stark County. They reached out to us and were interested in our dispatch center. They came up and gave them a tour, and they liked what they saw. So they asked us to draw up a contract. So what we did is we drew up a contract that's very similar to what the other agencies we dispatch for. There should be a copy with what in your packet, and it talks about what they would pay for each year over the 3-year life of the contract. We're waiting on BNC to come up and do some tests to see if we need to put a different antenna up, a stronger antenna, or if their radios reach. Right now, they're on the old radio system, but they are gonna switch to Marks here probably in the next year or so. And for us, it's gonna be seamless as far as our dispatch coordinators working on updating the MABUS and the different stuff that they need to input as far as like the GIS mapping and the different things we would need to do to be prepared to start with them, dispatching for them January 1st.
Any questions?
How many more communities does this dispatch center have the capability of bringing in?
Well, so this year we did not re-sign Ravenna Township, and we had dispatched for a short time for Randolph Township. So that was, I think, 11 total. So now we're 10. We're dispatching for 8 fire departments now, including our own. I think depending on what the call volume and the size of the department, we'd have to look and see what the manpower issue would be as far as if we needed to have more manpower to dispatch. Right now, that's not gonna cause any issues with manpower.
It's kind of an equal
Yeah,
split.
I mean, their call volume is very similar to some of the smaller departments we already dispatch for, so.
And you feel pretty confident that the $19,000 covers our cost on all of the dispatch center, or are we subsidizing it?
So, that's a great question. So the question is, it does not subsidize, all it does is offset our operating costs. So we would need to be staffed the way we're staffed. I mean, just with Ravenna City Police and Fire. So the more communities we have offsets our operating cost. So this $19,000 a year offsets what we do. We're not making any money doing dispatch.
No, it won't.
So we established that when we started taking on more customers, the idea was to make money, but we don't really make any money per se. We just offset our operating costs.
Which kind of in the end helps out. When we-
It doesn't sound like there's a lot of extra cost here, not much.
No, there's no extra cost for us to dispatch for them. There might be a little more work, a few more calls,
Yeah.
but as far as work volume, not much.
So we'll be in better shape with this than we were.
Anybody else have any questions? So Matt and Rob, are you okay moving it forward?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move this forward. Jeff, thank you for being proactive and filling up that spot. Okay. No management updates. I will go ahead and adjourn this at 6:21.
Okay, the only thing on this agenda tonight is the LG Chem sanitary easement. So they actually have to have this easement to actually progress much farther. And this is something that's, I'll just say, a necessity for them to operate. Mr. Finney, do you have any more actual details that they have to have?
Yes. This is on the agenda just as an update. The GE Warehouse ICP owners want compensated for LG's easement because it's a change of condition from the original warehouse and the manufacturing building, which those were built and they shared a sanitary line, because they were owned by the same company. When they were split, there were, to my knowledge, no provisions of splitting the sanitary line. So ICP legally can't argue with Chestnut Commerce Center draining through. We've told them we will take ownership as long as we have 3 easements. ICP now wants compensated for LG's easement because that's a change in condition. We've told ICP we will not compensate them for this easement, and I need to discuss this with Ray Harner, who's out of the country right now. I'm not sure what direction this is going to go.
Have they thrown out a number in terms of compensation that they're, or is it just stopped at that point?
Dennis believes they're going to want a lot of money. And I don't know what a lot means, if that's 30,000, 100,000, 10,000, I don't know. So we need to come up with a solution, or someone needs to come up with a solution or a dollar figure. LG wants to open their manufacturing plant at the end of February. They're going to start staffing their research building at the end of December, which is known as the second floor of the front building. So when the next item in the planning is ARPA funds. That might be something council would consider, or council could decide not to compensate at all, but we're going to scramble to assist LG if that's what city council wants to do.
What is the basis of their, wanting money? I mean, how are they being I'm not sure I understand how they're being disadvantaged here.
I agree. I don't have any other excuse for them other than they see an opportunity to make a little bit of money because it's a change in condition from the 2 buildings that were built in the 60s.
Yeah, but just a change of condition that doesn't have a negative impact on them doesn't really give them a standing to say they can make some extra money.
Correct, and the whole intent is the city will take ownership of the whole sewer line and maintenance in perpetuity. So one maintenance repair could save them quite a bit of money.
Yeah. Well, I think we might be jumping the gun to think about how to spend the ARPA funds if we're not going to be giving them any money. so.
Correct.
But I get your point, that's money, it's a pool of money we could draw from.
That's all, just an update.
We have a comment or a question from Cliff?
Thank you.
Yes.
Is this something that can be, I'll look at Bob and ask him, we're talking about that recovery of infrastructure money for, what's it called, a TIF. Would this be covered under that too? So even if we had to put the money out, it's, I mean, we gotta make this happen, right? I mean, it's gotta make it happen. So,
And I can't answer that, that would be Dennis's question, unless you can answer that. I'm not familiar with the TIFs.
yeah, I mean, the
They
only thing I've
function.
seen is what's been presented so far, and it's, what do you think?
I'm just trying to understand it too, kind of like, I guess like what Rob said, we're paying LG?
No, we would
No.
pay ICP for an ICP once paid, whether we pay or Ray Harner pays, LG pays,
Okay, but it's not actually for a construction thing or something we're building for, they just want a settlement of some sort. I don't know if that would be a good question, I'm not sure if that would qualify, because
Just wondering.
usually it's like a capital construction project or something like that, so I don't know if giving them a settlement would qualify for that, but.
Because the other one starts at year 16.
Correct, that's the TIF one, starts at year
16, okay, just wondering.
So LG Chem's sanitary line's gonna connect into this one, and then runs through theirs.
correct. That was the update.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're really no farther ahead at this date. All right, so this is put on hold. So we have no management update tonight, if there are no other comments pertaining to this topic. Okay, utilities will be adjourned at 6:27.
All right, at 6:28, the planning committee meeting will be called to order. We have, I believe, 7 items on the agenda, so hold on to your hats. Some of this is ongoing, so hopefully it's not going to be too onerous. The first item is revision of Chapter 214 of our Code of Ordinances. This has already been through a reading at a regular council meeting. The revisions were sent out, and I mean, there was an email correspondence from Mr. Semino, and I think it would, hopefully if I'm reading it right, it was just confirming the idea that under an emergency, funds can be expended even above the bidding limit of, what, 75,000. So I don't know that it impacted any further changes to what we've put in Chapter 214. By the way, Chapter 214 is that weird thing that talked about spending more than $2,000, and we're changing it now to go up to $25,000. But the only outstanding issue, and the reason we didn't vote on it at the last meeting, was we have some concerns about whether the language is appropriate or how we want to provide those reports, because part of the new ordinance would be that any purchase, any contract made for under the $25,000 limit wouldn't have to come to council for approval, but would be reported to council after it happened, so that we would just be notified like we do all the other reports we get on a regular council meeting. And I think Brian is still poking around with how to make that report. Recently sent out what looks to me like a check register of expenditures.
Yeah, the second one I sent out was like I took out all the payroll type stuff that,
Oh, okay. Maybe I
so
missed
it
that.
just lists all the non-payroll expenditures, and it'll list the vendor and the amounts, basically, and put it in check number order, and I can do it for each month or something
Okay.
like that.
I mean, to be clear, what's being asked to be reported is not all the expenditures in the prior month, just the ones that would normally go through your, because even if the expenditure is less than $25,000, the department head, mayor, whoever, would still have to confer with you that the money's there and all those other things and that's already in the code.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
So, it's just a matter of reporting that information.
So, yeah, and that's where I'm kind of confused. I'm not real sure exactly what we want. What is, you know?
Yeah, I get it that our
that's the part
systems don't have that incorporated into
Yeah,
it,
or-
right?
Yeah, what is it that everybody wants to see? I mean, I can sort it, I could take that same report and just take it everything over $2,000 if you wanted, or I could set any kind of dollar amount you wanted. It's pretty easy to do. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not real hard.
Well, I didn't find what you sent out too onerous. I mean, there was
Yeah.
about 200 and some odd things in there.
Yeah.
But you can kind of scan through. A lot of them are very small amounts.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did send it out as a spreadsheet, then we could sort and do
Yeah.
all kinds of things. Does anybody have any concerns about that report, the latest report that Brian sent out?
I kind of like Brian's idea of sending out, maybe setting like a, in between this cost and this cost. Because
Okay.
I don't think we need to know that someone spent $27 at AutoZone. So,
Right.
like to say, so to say any cost between 2,000 and, or something like that might, so that way it's an at a glance.
Okay.
We could take a look at the larger things that are authorized
And-
and,
I think that's a good idea, good suggestion. The question is, should we change the ordinance then to state that the report will be anything above $2,000?
I think I'm fine with it the way that it is.
Yeah,
I don't know that we're making it too complicated.
Yeah.
The thing was to make it so it's not so hard to get things and to keep things tied up. I don't wanna make it so detail oriented too for, everyone else, because ultimately the mayor is accountable for whatever he signs off on. He takes an oath in office too, and so does, well, right now, the finance director. So I don't wanna micromanage and take time away for, the staff to prepare this for a little amount of dollars when there's really no,
I mean, the
make it a
report-
higher amount that's
Yeah.
gonna be,
Well, it's already here.
Yeah, the report.
They're
I
already
sent,
doing
I mean,
this.
It's more just a system. I'm just pulling that from the system.
Yeah.
I can even put it in Excel like you want.
Yeah.
It can be Excel or PDF, so it's pretty easy to do.
Well, this is great.
I mean, I could throw a filter on it and just say everything over 1,000 or 2,000 if you wanted that. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd just be a quick, or you could do that too. You could put filters on it and do the same thing if you wanted to look at it.
So, I mean, I'm good
Yeah.
with the reporting you've already sent us, and I'm good with leaving the language where it is. We don't have to do anything except wait for it to come around in the next meeting and decide if we want to approve it then. Is that okay?
yeah.
So there's no action to move forward, it's already on the agenda
Yeah,
unless we want to tweak the language, which it
We just
sounds
want to make
like.
sure we're on the same page here.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right, so I think we're good on that item. The next item is spending ARPA funds. So I've got a little bit of a, kind of keeping track of who's requesting what, and I might have missed some things. So what I have so far, and we've already talked about repaving, well, I guess not repaving, but resurfacing the playground at Chestnut Hills. If I remember, that was about $180,000.
Sounds about right.
And then following that, more recently, Judy Watkins had sent out, and I don't remember exactly who got this, but quotes for city park surfaces. The tennis courts, the pickleball court, basketball, and skate courts or skate park. And that was through a company, I can't remember the company, but I believe it's in your pack, or was sent out in the email. And that adds up to $141,000. And then today, we've got a request, or a few requests from the police department, and I might need some help with this, though. Cameras, I believe, in the motor pool,
Yes.
and so just so I know, there would just be the purchase of cameras at about a little over $15,000, nothing else, just that one-time cost.
Yes.
And then an interactive mobile force simulator. That may need some I don't know what that is, but about $21,000. Maybe you could explain what that is, Chief?
Yeah, it's a use of force simulator that, what it does is it shows on the screen, so there's different scenarios that we can run police officers through. And what it does is it allows them to use their, puts them in situations where they can use different, that they, so decision-making and being able to assess situations and problem solve going through. So there are thousands of scenarios that come with the computer program. So they're shown on a big screen. I attached a link that has a video for you to look at.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that.
So when you get a chance and you get some free time, take a look at the video. There, I saw it at Oakwood Village has one. It's about $36,000.
Right. Oh,
And
your quote here was about 21,000.
is it?
That's what I thought I saw in the quote, maybe I misread it. That's fine, but it's a one-time fee, right?
One-time fee.
Yeah, okay. Now, the third one is called a flock camera,
Flock.
but this is gonna be a little bit more difficult because it's a $30,000 a year service.
Sure.
And if I understand what it is, I think it's the cameras you put up to catch speeders or something? Or am I, no, because I saw a picture, it looked like that's what it was.
Again, if you take some time, there's a link that I attached to it.
Right.
So what it does is it explains in the link, and there's a link to the website. And what it does is it runs license plates, so it's not to catch speeders, they are not speed cameras. What they are is, the system is connected to other systems, other places that have the flock system. So if we have a stolen vehicle enters our town, it would alert
Okay.
us. If there's somebody that has warrants, it would do the same thing.
Yeah. No, I didn't necessarily mean it was to catch speeders. It was just that mechanism where it's a fixed camera that can catch somebody, not somebody's eyeballs, and then
No,
process.
it's not facial recognition.
No. Okay, I'm not explaining myself right. It functions the way like you would catch a speeder. It just doesn't do that. It does other things.
That's correct.
Okay. So the only concern I have is ARPA funds, it's a fixed amount of money we got from the federal government. And in my opinion, and we can disagree about this, but I think it's better suited to one-time expenditures. Not to say that this isn't a good purchase to consider, but maybe not for ARPA funds, because we'll run out of money, and then the money's gonna have to come out of someplace else anyway.
Sure, and, with this one-time purchase, what it could do is it could set us up for maybe a couple years, and then we could look at, because those cameras, again, on the website, there are different things, you can put those cameras downtown, and that might be another discussion to have, to kind of alleviate some of the issues that we're having.
Chief, I can't hear you. You mind taking your conversation outside real quick? Go ahead.
So the cameras would also be able, they have cameras for downtown, like neighborhoods. There's a bunch of uses for those. Initially, when I just talked to Andrew before the meeting, they do have on the website, they do have cameras that you can, different types that you can put into downtown areas.
So it doesn't require a subscription that could be used for other purposes?
Those do. So
Oh.
it's about $3,000 a
Okay.
camera. So I guess
Okay.
we could look at initially getting into it and then finding the money down the road to pay for those, setting that money aside to pay for that in the future. So it would get us into it initially, maybe even a year or a 2-year subscription, and then we could find the money elsewhere
Okay.
down the road.
So would it be something then that we would build on, like you get the initial like base part and then figure out where best cameras would be needed, and then we could feasibly build on it?
Yeah, they come in and they'll do a study, so they're looking at different traffic and different places where they can put them up. Aurora has 7 cameras, and they've been pretty successful. One of the links to the email that I sent was a stolen vehicle that entered their city today.
Wow.
So they're able to, we had a call last Friday, without going into great detail, but what happened was these people came in from out of town, New York, Virginia. They end up with a person they dropped off at the hospital who later was deceased, and they were able to, they end up at the hospital in Portage County, but they were able to track and see where they were over the course through the flock cameras. So they're able to kind of verify their stories.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. The only question I have is whether or not ARPA funds should be used, and I could see using it as a startup.
Yeah, that's, I think you're right. I think you would use it maybe for the initial purchase, but the subscription, we'd have to come up with in the
Right.
budget if we wanted to do this, but, yeah.
So by my accounting, we're under $400,000 from the requests I've just mentioned. I don't know if there were others out there that didn't get their way to me or you.
Yeah, that's all I've gotten. Right, one of the things.
So,
I thought Bill Burdine had something, did you not?
He did.
I didn't get anything in writing from him, but.
You're correct. There's nothing in writing yet. That's, the only reason for that is he doesn't have all the exact financial numbers yet for the different projects that are coming down. But he was probably going to request some of that, but like I said, he doesn't have the exact numbers yet from vendors that he'll be needing.
I don't know if council, you know, if there is money left over still, could give ideas on things that maybe we would like to see. Possibly, like, what I had talked about, is some, you know, our downtown, updating some features maybe in our downtown. You know, different things that we could do to, you know, maybe beautify our downtown a little more, you know, so.
yeah.
I think that could be an option that maybe we could discuss, if anyone else has any ideas, if there is money left over, something that we wouldn't normally spend money on, but to better, you know, our community, so.
And there was a little bit of talk of using maybe a little bit of that toward the, excuse me, new water tank,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
small portion of it.
There's not that much left.
yeah,
Right.
we're talking about a drop in the bucket.
The
It
total amount is what, that we're looking at, 450,000?
was like 500.
I think 576 is what we have.
Okay,
Yeah.
570.
So we still have, you know, about $200,000
Yeah.
to
Okay.
spend. From this accounting, what we've talked about, maybe there's more coming from, is it the water plant?
It'd be wastewater
Waste-
treatment.
Wastewater treatment. So, yeah, if we could, you know, get some, the goal was to try to get this money encumbered by the end of the year. Now, that's going to be.
It doesn't have to be, it can be next year, it can be 24.
My suggestion is, because it sounds like there's some missing pieces, there's some money left over, that maybe we keep this still at the discussion level, and maybe by January, if we can kind of compile these purchases, you know, get some more information, and reach that limit, and if there's still money left over, maybe signs, you know, we could think about other things that we could do. But I think we're not ready to pull the trigger maybe and move this forward as an action item yet. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And spread
Do you
the
mind-
word, there's money to be
do you-
spent. I don't
do
know
you-
why not every department doesn't have
Do you mind sharing or emailing around your
this.
accounting?
I will definitely, I just wrote this up this afternoon. Yes, I can do
And
that.
and I can share, Chiefs did send me the stuff today, I sent it just, I think.
Yeah, you sent it to me
Yeah, so I'll
today.
send it out to all the council, we just got it this afternoon, so we'll send it all, so you guys can look at all the stuff he's talking
Thank
about. It's some pretty neat stuff,
Yeah.
and, look at what he's talking about.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Sourcewell. And this kind of fits into the previous two agenda items. And, you know, we've had Sourcewell for years, and I'm not sure how many people know about it. You know, Bob was at the Zoom meeting we had with the representative from Sourcewell. So for example, Forever Lawn could be the company that installs the turf or whatever we call the playground surface. And that's where we got the 180,000, I believe, estimate. Now, the good thing about Sourcewell is you don't have to go through state bidding. It's this interesting substitute because the way they function is they send out RFPs in advance before there's an actual job to be done that qualifies, you know, state by state according to their rules. And so if they're awarded a contract through Sourcewell, in a sense, they've already done the bidding process. So we can go directly to them and choose them as a vendor or whoever else they have a contract with. So that's good to know, and I don't know if some of these other things, like the Chief's cameras, maybe they're in the list too, I don't know. Not everything is, obviously. But one thing I hope the administration does is spread the word. Sourcewell not only has these pre-existing contracts that have met that bidding standard, but they also have sort of like I forgot what they called it, the shopping area with, they have Staples and they have already discounted stuff. And I think we found, even in this Zoom call, that there were some things we were purchasing that we probably could get at a discount if the department purchasing it knew that they were included in the Safe Well. And I can't remember, it's called Be Well or something like that. It's got another name. So this isn't really an action item. We already have Safe Well, or Source Well. I just hope that the city takes more advantage of it. And then when we get to those threshold bidding opportunities, then, we make sure we take advantage and see if there's something already in there.
That could take a key step away,
Yeah.
of getting that, and especially with the playground.
Yeah.
Forever Lawn, I mean, that is something that is completely different than just putting any type of turf over it. So in this situation, I'm very grateful because we don't have to go through that bidding process with this.
Right.
I thought it was an interesting route in which we found out about Sourcewell, that it was available.
Well,
I had not been aware
You know how
that
we
there.
found out?
Judy,
Yeah.
No,
when-
the company.
The company alerted Judy
Yeah.
to the fact that the program was there and possible. So it's good to know. It's good to find out about.
Yeah,
I
and-
just,
And certainly
I had not been
something
aware of it.
we can promote to local businesses who may want to get on the Sourcewell bandwagon, because they're gonna make more money when they're, when entities like ours take advantage of this service. Okay, so we'll move on. The next item is also not an item for action. It's more of a discussion. And I don't know if other people got that email, but there was an email from somebody, and I don't remember where it came from, but they were asking about storage facilities. And did you get that?
No, but I remember the discussion in the past.
Right. Well, we have a moratorium in place for and whoever sent me this email didn't know that. But they were curious, and that kind of sent a little trigger off for me, that wanted to know if I knew of any upcoming storage facilities coming in. And I didn't answer them. But then it reminded me that we did put a moratorium in. Now, to be clear, my view of moratoriums are, I think they're a good idea if they're based upon some analysis, some future action. In the case of storage facilities, we really don't have anything in our code that describes, where they go or whatever. I mean, I think it says they have to be in like an industrial area, or maybe commercial, I don't know. But the concern is, from the city's perspective, is we have two of them, and they're pretty close proximity to each other. They don't run on much manpower, so there's not a whole lot of income tax. Now, that's kind of a self-interest for the city to have, but on the other hand, it's a reality. And the last thing we'd want to do is see, proliferation of storage facilities, storage units across our city. So we put a moratorium on place to review that. And of course, that's going to end in a few months, and I think we're going to need to do something about that. So I'll look in, I'll talk to Bob, and I don't know, maybe Dennis also, about what we should have in there. Now, I don't think a moratorium, though, should be a substitute for a ban. Because I don't think this, in my opinion, it's not the city's place to enter into the marketplace and say what legitimate businesses can be in our, and by the way, this is a private transaction. Somebody owns land, not the city, sells their land to somebody to put in a storage facility. That really doesn't have anything to do with us unless there are zoning issues and things like that. So I do want to be cautious of the use of moratoriums. But there's been mention of moratoriums on vape places, and that's happened in Kent, but Kent is, again, proliferated with them. So I do want to be careful, or want us to be careful about the reasons we put in a moratorium, and if we do, it's a temporary fix until we put something more legitimate into our code, long-standing.
well, that's with our master plan that we're working
The
on.
comprehensive.
Yeah, the comprehensive plan could help there too, although I don't know that it gets that specific in terms of identifying zoning code. I mean, it's more
It does
broader.
narrow down into the zoning. That's the point of having a
Right,
comprehensive plan.
land
is to base
use.
the zoning off of it.
Right.
And it can be, part of it can be to review the current zoning codes
Right,
and areas, but the moratorium, even on the storage, it was even discussed when we did that it was going to be temporary until the comprehensive plan was complete. Therefore, the comprehensive plan could help dictate and navigate those items.
It could be informative, but the problem is the moratorium is probably going to end before the comprehensive plan is completed, because I think it's January or February.
Can you extend it? I mean, where are
We could, you could vote to extend it, but my opinion, though, is, and such a specific issue like this, I think that the deficiency that we saw is we don't have enough in our zoning code specifically addressing this issue. And my preference, although I don't see that it's inconsistent with discussions at the comprehensive plan level, is that we actually change our code and we identify what the storage units are. What we decide is appropriate. For example, maybe they shouldn't be too close together. There should only be a certain number of them. That's what other cities like to do when it comes to, well, the vape issue, we want to reduce the number throughout the city. So I think that's a legitimate role for cities to play. I don't know that we want to just out and out ban things, though. That's where I get a little nervous, that we're interfering with the marketplace, and I don't know if that's our role. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up and to just point out that we do have some work to be done with storage units. And I don't know, Bob, if you know of any other activity in that area. Has anybody come to you for, permits or anything?
Recently, we had a request for the property on Lake Avenue for semi-truck storage and parking. There was no other information, but it is currently permitted. Truck storage, truck parking is permitted in the I-1 zoning district.
And that wasn't under the moratorium?
That is not under the moratorium,
No, it's a
storage
different
units
type of business.
specifically.
Okay.
I'm just my opinion, but we can take things out of the code, or we can add things to the code, permitted and conditionally permitted.
Right.
Obviously, we just had a law passed a week ago that we don't have provisions in our code for. So council should be.
Medical marijuana, is that what?
Yeah, the legalizing marijuana sales.
Right, yeah.
Recreational.
Specifically, commercial sales, we don't have that, but
Yeah,
I do know that our current medical marijuana sales is already kind of thinking that direction.
Right,
We were told that at the open house.
right. And I believe the new law, although it could be changed because it's not part of the Constitution, our legislature, state legislature could change it, but as it exists now, when it goes into effect, cities like ours can decide whether or not we want to have it. So,
And same thing with storage units. When we
Right.
look at the land that's available and how we would want that land to be utilized, obviously creating jobs and income tax, storage units are not going to do that.
right. Well, I'm not going to repeat what I said about what the city's role is, but I do think, and I'll reach out to you and Dennis about what changes we might want to see. And certainly, I don't see that this would not be a discussion for the comprehensive plan, but I don't want to rely on the comprehensive plan being an overall, or the end-all for all these kind of issues.
No, but it's gonna help make
It's a basis for zoning.
Yeah.
It is a legitimate legal basis
I
for
guess
zoning.
the way, what I'm trying to say is I don't want to just push everything off, assuming that the comprehensive plan is going to solve all our problems. I guess that's a better way to put it.
No, but I don't want to make decisions prior to the comprehensive plan being done that's going to change it before it ever starts.
Where are we with that? Have you guys decided your board and got stuff situated yet? Because we haven't heard really any updates on that. I don't mean to, I know that's a different topic, but where are we with that? We haven't really had
Todd,
any
I don't know if anybody else, but Todd called me, I believe, last week.
Yes. So
And
there's
he's-
a couple of council members, myself and Rob, that Andrew chose to be a part of the kickoff steering committee, different entities that are also involved in starting that. I know that Todd is planning on meeting with everybody, having several different meetings throughout the process, so that should be all gearing up very shortly.
Good, good. That's a plus.
Are there, back to your point, but are there suggestions within conditional use that we can take a look at? I guess my question for you then first is, are there suggestions within the zoning code that you think should be updated or added right
Yeah.
now? Because I
Yeah,
know
and
Bob
I'd
has
like
talked
to
about
do, you
conditional
know,
use in the past.
Yeah, the answer is yes. I don't know what they are. I'd like to look at other places, because I can't remember where the other, we based this because somebody else had a moratorium on storage units. I can't remember what city it was. I'd like to see what others are doing in that regard, so that, you know, we have a model to go by. So again, this is just brought up for discussion. We still have a few months before the moratorium runs out. At that time, we're going to have to decide whether we want to continue it or run the risk somebody else will put one in, or
maybe
make changes.
My suggestion then, maybe me, you, Cheryl, and Bob and Dennis sit down and talk about that and see
Okay.
what that might look like.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that suggestion. All right, so let's move on. The next item on the agenda is just housekeeping. Every year, we renew the public defender's contract. This is a contract with the county to provide legal assistance for indigenous people, well, not indigenous, what's the word? Indigent. Yeah, I added a few vowels in there, so. People who can't afford a legal defense. And I checked the contract compared to last year. It's the same amount, $150. It's described as per incident. But really, that's just something we need to approve at our next meeting. So is that okay to move on?
Well, we have no choice.
Yeah. All right, so then, the next two items I did not put on the agenda, and I'm not exactly, I kind of know what it is, and Bob handed out something this, before the meeting got started, related to the Old Forge Road ditch. So Bob, maybe you want to, and you see the letter, so you can probably figure out what's going on here.
I believe we have some individuals here. Did you want to speak on this? On the Old Forge?
I don't know.
Or, okay.
I didn't know they were coming, but that's fine. Just showing you
Well,
the map.
do you want to, maybe, is it all right if Bob starts, just to describe what's going on, and then you can respond to?
Sure. Are you Mr. Parsons?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
The mayor forwarded the letter to me that you guys have. Yeah, I'll let you read it yourselves, and then I put the map together, just a quick and dirty map showing his parcels, and in the red, the city's parcel. There was a brief discussion that this property is in the Rootstown JED, and according to Dennis, the JED actually stops at State Route 18, and this property is south of that, so it's not part of the JED, the Rootstown JED.
Oh, it's not?
It is not, according
Oh,
to
okay.
Dennis, the JED stops at State Route 18.
Yeah, I think just to, I guess, add where we were, or what I remember as the conversation, is that there was concern about what the easement looked like. There was some question, or now it's a purchase, so I know in the letter it's a little different, so I don't know if that's changed. And then what I will say personally is conversations about, if you could just talk about the water source, but giving up a water source for the city, is there water flowing through it? Because I've never seen it. I see the Google map, that you provided. Is it an actual water source that's supporting the city in any way?
No, it is
Okay.
not.
So with the purchase then, the whole discussion has changed from an easement, meeting some of those requirements that you were talking to just an overall purchase by Mr. Parsons. Do I have that right?
Correct.
According to okay. So I'll let you talk. I just wanted to make sure that I'm on the same page. But my concern, and if it's not a concern at all now, is giving up any kind of, water source for the city. But it sounds.
It doesn't go into Crystal Lake?
I'm sorry.
It doesn't feed into Crystal Lake, correct?
No.
Okay.
It originally, I don't know how many years ago, it fed Muzzy Lake. And then Muzzy Lake, I don't know if Muzzy Lake was a water source or if it fed Crystal Lake and then Crystal Lake was a water. I don't know. But that was before your time and mine both. And it's a 4-foot wooden pipeline that is partially underground, partially above ground. It's rotten. You stand on it, you'll fall through. I'd like to get it taken care of. Get it back in my name if possible so I can sell. I am landlocked partially by it. north end, there's property on the west side of it that you can't get to unless you cross that pipeline.
Was there an opinion by the mayor or Bob on this, selling this?
And this is up to council. I think it's difficult to establish a price, knowing how much more valuable his land will be with, obviously, you're eliminating landlocked parcels, so it makes it more valuable. County auditors showing a value of $53,000, but that's also the portion below where Old Forge Road, where the red area that I colored gets much bigger. So the portion that runs through, that splits his property is much less than 53 acres. Maybe it's 6, 8 acres, I don't know.
Have you had any conversations about, the purchase with anybody from the city
No,
outside of this? Okay.
no.
What drove your decision, or at least the decision, to change the request from a easement to a purchase? Because originally, and it wasn't you, it was somebody else who was here, wasn't it? You were here before?
I was here before.
Okay.
My son was here.
Oh, okay.
He couldn't make it tonight.
But you wanted an easement at that time?
At that time, we wanted an easement, yes, but by going with the purchase, then maybe we can develop the land, because it's all swamp right now, on both sides of the pipeline. And it's not usable.
Okay.
And if I purchase it, we can clean it out, drain it, make it usable.
Okay. Is there no reasonable purpose for this for the city? I mean, it had, one time was transporting water from a water source, and now it's not doing that. So, I mean, what's the disadvantage of selling it?
There is no disadvantage to selling it, because we won't use it. We've already given our rights, well, we haven't given our rights away for Muzzy Lake. We can always pull water. We still have our pump station there, even though there's no pumps in it. But we could pump water to Crystal Lake, and then from Crystal Lake to Lake Hodgson if we ever needed. That's originally what was, well, originally it would come from Muzzy Lake, pump to Crystal Lake and be treated. Then they put the wells in at some point at Crystal Lake, stopped pumping water to my knowledge. It's still a lot of gray area, because no one's alive that remembers all of that. Mr. Bowen does, but it didn't function even when he was originally the city engineer, so.
What is the law director's feelings on this? I mean, has he given, because I don't know, other than Cheryl, who knows the value of property land and stuff, that's really not up to us to come up with a fair price, or, that's not fair to us.
That's what I was going to suggest between now and next week, asking, and this is a question of when the mayor returns. I don't know if to get back between.
Wednesday, I believe.
So is there a time that you can schedule a meeting with Mr. Parsons and then come with a suggested sale price to council by Monday, next Monday?
Well, in his
And then we can-
letter, he's requesting he requests to purchase it for a nominal fee.
Yeah, if there's an actual number, and I know you mentioned what the auditor site says, but then if you have a conversation directly with the mayor, if necessary, the law director, and then you can come back Monday, and at least this goes on to the next step for a decision. But then we at least have a number in front of us to make that decision.
I can do that.
Sound all right?
And at least I think we should have an appraised value, I don't know, not maybe for the county website, but on a real estate, I think that's only fair to our taxpayers as well. Because if it's city-owned, it has a value.
Is there a current flow through this pipe or ditch at all at this point? If it's surrounded by swamp and it's sold and fixed, is it gonna create problems on other properties? If there's a flow through there that could potentially be cut off with development?
Well, they would never be able to cut off the flow. It would always have to remain some form of a ditch, whether it's an open ditch or a pipe ditch. That's just a natural drainage course.
So if they did anything, they would have to put culverts to maintain?
Or open ditch, whichever. It would have to remain open to drain. It's a quite an area that gets drained through there.
Well, the beauty of selling it is it's not our problem at that point.
No.
Right.
I don't think we want to contribute to.
Well, that's true,
neighboring- I
too.
mean, I know it's not a problem, but I feel
The
uncomfortable.
water
doing it.
actually comes from Breakneck Creek. And at the end of Klein Road, where it comes into Old Forge Road, if you look right straight across, there's a dam right there. And there used to be a control house there where they raised and lowered the dam to regulate the water flow going through the pipeline. Well, the powerhouse is gone, the control house is gone, the dam is at the bottom, so there's not gonna be, the water in that area naturally flows west. So with that dam, they were changing the flow, forcing it through the pipeline.
So is this something we want to move on for more immediate action, or?
I don't think we should move on until we have more information.
I think it's the comfort level of I guess the committee. So Mr. Calfee and Ms. Michael, my suggestion was to have the individual meeting so that there is a number in front of us of what that requested sale amount is. I think it's hard for us to say yes
Right.
without, the number, and I understand the auditor's suggested number, but I'd rather have you in front of the mayor having a direct conversation and then a suggestion coming from the administration on what this looks like.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable moving it forward yet. That's my opinion.
I'm fine holding it.
Well,
It's been a condition that has existed for a number of years, and to get additional information at this time, I think would be good for us to have.
okay, so it'll be an ongoing discussion. Don't expect any immediate action, but hopefully, maybe we'll have a meeting of the minds and come up with a number. All right,
Okay.
thank you. All right, the last item on the agenda is the Main Street Ravenna donation. And we did have a visit at our last meeting from Main Street. Did you put this on the agenda?
It was requested on the agenda, yeah, so
Okay.
if we wanted to have the discussion now, we
So-
could.
Well, it's on the agenda, so I guess that's the time to do it. If I recall, they were asking for 25,000 or 30, I forget now.
30. Wow. It was to double it, I think.
Okay.
From 15 to 30.
The premise, I know, Paul, I don't think you were here for the presentation. The
No,
premise
No, I
was
wasn't, I was out of state.
Heritage Ohio, is it required? In the packet, I believe, is in there, but it was 1/3 of whatever their overall budget was.
Yeah, they
Suggested.
can't require
Suggested.
Yeah.
anything.
So their budget is $90,000 per year, so the request that they put in with the city
Okay, a third of
was
that.
1/3 of that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, currently, we started with the inception of Main Street Ravenna, paying them $5,000 a year. And we did that under a 3-year provision. And then they came and requested more, and we gave them $15,000 for the last, I believe, 2 years.
And also, just to clarify, as I remember it, when they came back and we agreed to the 15,000 the first year, it was under the stipulation that we reviewed that the following year, and that it would get reapproved, and it could lower at that time. Unfortunately, it never came back in front of council.
That is true, and
be
I think it got budgeted. I guess that would be the way to describe what happened. And so, yeah, they asked for 15,000 that 1 year, and I remember the discussion that would just be for 1 year and we review it, but then the following year, they just got the same 15,000 this year.
And it never, she's right, it never came up for discussion within this body.
Yeah. Being a founding member of their board, I remember how difficult it was to get them up and running. It's a tough thing. Some people on our council know how raising money can be difficult. I fully support Main Street, even though I'm no longer a member of their board and haven't been for several years now. I don't think asking for $30,000 is that out of the question. And the thing about Ravenna, or Main Street Ravenna, is when they do come here, they do describe the many ways that they support the city. And I think we get the money back in a lot of ways, sometimes direct financial support through grants and other mechanisms, and other sort of intangible ways by the programming they put on and some of the other activities. So I do support a higher number, whether it's 30,000, I guess maybe we could debate that.
If we do them 30, are we gonna do the chamber 30?
Well, I've always made this,
I mean, I'm just,
no,
because they're both like the same, they do opposite things, but they're both, they're both a strong entity in our downtown. And so then you're looking at 60,000.
well, I would say this, and I've said this whenever we've discussed this issue, they're not equal. The chamber is a member-driven entity, and Chambers of Commerce has been around for, I don't know how long, decades, hundreds of years? And the premise is, you solicit membership of the businesses, and then you provide programming and other mechanisms that help those businesses grow and thrive. Main Street is really not that at all. There's no membership. It's wholly dependent upon donations, people who just reach into their pocket and give money, and to a certain extent, entities like the city or the municipalities they serve. And that's why it's one of those things, when you get in the mail, somebody wants money and the suggested amounts are, that's kind of what it is. And so a third of their funding, and having that entity run at $90,000 a year is not that much money. So all in all, I think the $30,000 figure is fair. I do worry when we seem to have this idea that we now have to up the amount we give the chamber. Again, I consider that apples and oranges. The chamber isn't relying upon us or other people to donate. If you want to belong to the chamber, they say, well, they ask you, well, how many employees do you have? All these questions, and then they set a fee.
Yes.
So that's my argument about not that I'm opposed to giving $30,000 to the chamber as well, to be honest with you, because I think they, just like Main Street Ravenna, play a valuable role and give back to our city in many ways too.
I just know the mayor has made comments in the past that, if he does for one, he's gonna do for the other. So I'm just saying, are we prepared to I don't know, I just think it sets us, I mean, I don't know, I don't know, I just think that doubling that amount of what we give them is just gonna set us up right now for problems if we don't do it for both.
Yeah, but they're both
I know.
different.
They're very different entities, and they both do a great job for the city. The chamber helps for our current businesses that are here, that are members, to expand and to thrive and to stay here. Where Main Street is to bring the people in to town, create events and places and things to bring the people in order to support those businesses. So they go hand in hand. They're both very good for the city. And I'm in favor of what we do for one, we do for the other. We also have several other nonprofits within the city that promote economic development and many other functions, and never once have any of them asked us for much of anything, not alone 30,000. Then I'm gonna go on a completely different tangent with it. Our next committee meeting, we have, several different positions and personnel issues and things. And I'm sorry, but I think adding personnel to our fire department and to other things throughout the city is much more a priority than donating to nonprofits at the moment. Let's figure out our budget. Let's figure out where we are with the things that we need in order to provide for our current residents and our taxpayers, and then decide where we can donate.
Yeah, I just want to point out two things. Main Street came here and asked for the donation, so that's number one. Just Main Street came in here.
So far.
That's the request.
So far.
Well, then bring on Chamber, because we haven't heard it. The other suggestion is that what the mayor said, that, and I would put it again, to him, that what is that suggested amount? If council can't decide, then what is his suggested amount, and is he going to match? I hesitate to even say it, because Main Street is on the agenda, the Chamber is not on the agenda. So
Yes.
what is that suggested amount to Main Street Ravenna, and then can you bring that to council? Or when budget time comes around, then we can have that discussion as well. So that's what I would ask at this point.
I would just ask, do we give anything to the Chamber of Commerce right now?
Yeah, we give the same
Yes.
amount we give to Main Street.
We give them both $15,000.
Yes. Well, I mean, I suppose moving this on just means we could still be debating the amount. It doesn't have an amount. There's not even a tracking sheet, I don't think, for this.
But then there's a good point brought up. I mean, I have to go with what I'm just hearing since I wasn't here, that Main Street was physically here and brought up some points. That was the only nonprofit where no one else was here to bring up any specific points. And I'm not saying anything against the chamber, but I've known over the years that whether you're a proprietor or you have a business with several employees, what you're contributing varies.
I'm not against donating, I just don't know if doubling the amount.
It shouldn't be exactly, you have to decide with each entity.
So,
Well, if their budget went up by a certain percentage, I think they said we're increasing their budget to 90,000
I don't know if it's, how much?
90,000 from 80,000.
from
Well, if
80
it's
to.
120 next year, are we still gonna do a third, or 150?
Yeah.
When it
Right.
gets to 200,000?
I think it depends if you want a Main Street around. I think it's a question of, do you want Main Street here? Do you want to try and bring people to downtown? Are you going to plan that? We gonna hire an events director here for the city? Because that's part of the thing that's supposed to offset.
Yes.
So
I don't think
read
it's
the
anybody
read the packet that you
disputing.
have that was given out to us last week. That is the point.
It's not disputing that we want them here and we need them here, but we also have other things that we need to consider. And just because they're asking for 30,000, I don't think we need to
So
give
then let's-
30,000.
What is the number? Are we going to make a
don't have a
donation because
specific.
it's required for Ohio, Heritage Ohio?
Well, one suggestion that I have would be to increase the donation in the percentage in which they increase their budget. So their budget went up 20%, we would increase our contribution 20%.
Yeah, look,
That's just a suggestion.
yeah, I understand. Maybe, I don't know, it would be helpful to have the mayor's input. So my
yes.
suggestion, if it's okay, because the donation typically is made the beginning of the year, that we move this on, and then, does anybody here think we should not give a donation to Main Street at all?
No.
Okay, so we're going to make a donation. Let's move this along, and then we can continue the discussion about how much. My personal opinion is, I think 30,000 is a fair amount. If you look at our neighbors in Kent, they give more than twice that amount to their Main Street program. So anyway, is that okay? You okay just moving it on without a fixed number attached to it?
Well, then, from what you're saying, then, it'll have to be decided
Yeah.
next month.
Well, I
Well, it'll
think
be
by-
decided by the time we vote on it.
By Monday, I think I'm asking for a number from the mayor.
All right, make sure I make a note for that.
But going by in the past, we know what he's going to.
Well, we'll see come Monday.
Yeah, let's see
Okay.
what he says. All right, well, then that ends the critical elements on this agenda. I assume there's no management updates, so I will adjourn the planning committee meeting at 7:19.
Okay, we'll call to order the Personnel Committee meeting at 7:20. First item on the agenda is the Human Resource Director contract. As you know, we employ Heather Richkowski as our Human Resources Consultant. She's under a professional services contract and has been operating under it now for 7 years. The contract is one that rolls over each year, a single-year contract, 1 year to the next. This contract that's coming up for this coming year would not change in any way, except there would be an increase in payment on it of about 5.5% or $5,000. And the recommendation would be that we move this forward. The new contract would begin in January.
I just did want to point out too, like, it's 5.5%, but she hasn't gotten a raise in a couple of years, so.
Yeah, in the 7 years that she's been here, it started at 80. Some years she has gone up, other years not. This would be a year that she would go up. I think she went up last year also, but the 2 previous years she did not, I think. But yeah, it's not, I'm not for sure. But it is not every year, you know, it is not every year.
Well, yeah, I don't know that it started at 80,000, but I want to make sure, because this comes up all the time, and you hear me say this, and I don't know, I guess I feel like I'm barking at the moon, but this is not, she's not an employee, okay? So, and I want to make sure I understand too, I'm not opposed to the increase. I'm opposed to the word cost of living. It's not our business, since she's not an employee, to accommodate a cost of living. If we believe her services are worth more, and she should be asking for the increase, and I don't know if that's where this came from. If she's not asking for the increase, we shouldn't be giving it to her. I mean, you don't go to the store, you know, and say, you know, I want that item, but I want to pay more. You know what I mean?
It came from a discussion, the mayor and I were discussing, and Heather, were all discussing Dennis's West contract. And then when we were doing that, we were coming up with what we felt like was the appropriate amounts for that. And then in doing that, we felt that it would, you know, it would be in our best interest to kind of keep those contracts as equal as possible. We feel like they're completely different things at what they do, obviously, but they're both extremely valuable in different ways. So it's really kind of comparing, like you said, apple or orange. I mean, who's better, you know, who's doing more. And, you know, they're both doing, you know, some pretty major contributions to the city. You know, when you look at this, we're not paying OPERS to them, we're not paying the 14% OPERS, and we're also not paying any insurance on them. So the city does not have to pay a lot of that stuff like so $95,000 to an employee would be much, much, much higher than $95,000 to a contractor. So we were looking at those, and that was one of the thoughts. We were trying to keep those equal. You know, you're right. I mean, they are not employees. You don't necessarily look at inflation, but if she provides the same service, you know, from one year to another year, that service is worth a little bit more because everything's worth a little
But here's the way it works. I mean,
And-
saying cost of living from our perspective and putting a percentage amount, that's an employee.
Yes.
Okay, if you want to make her an employee, we can go through that process, and I'm sure the IRS would prefer that we do that, because we're getting dangerously close to not calling her an employee just for the reasons you mentioned, so we don't have to do these other things. But that's not how it works.
Right.
There's a clear division, and there's actually IRS forms that describe what an employee is and what an independent contractor is. And I just worry we dance too close to that line when we put words like cost of living. It should be her saying, my services are costing me more because my cost of living is going up. I want my contract to be increased, therefore.
Yeah.
Not the city saying, hey, we like you, we're going to give you more money. I mean, that's
fair, yeah, that's fair.
so my only objection is the wording. Take
Okay.
out cost of living, that's
Yeah.
fine, I'm fine with this.
Yeah, and Mr. Karas, as I anticipated tonight's meeting, I knew for sure that you would raise an objection over the employment of her on a contract.
Right.
And duly noted, and we'll stipulate that each year that will come up. In this regard, I don't think if on the tracking sheet it says a cost of living increase, we can just take that out
Make sure
and
it's not part of the ordinance, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
That's a good point, yeah, no,
authorize, you know, it's an increase in the compensation for it. And, yes, and so, who's on the committee? Mr. Harper and
I'm okay
Ms.
with
West?
moving it.
Okay, we'll move that one forward. The next one is the contract for Dennis West and Economic Development contract. This contract, for the past 4 years, has been a one-year, year-to-year contract. There are a couple changes in it this year. one of the things that we're looking to do is to make it a 3-year contract. And we were approached by the Ravenna Township and on the idea of could we make this a multi-year contract? And they're wanting to continue to participate with it. And the mayor agrees that that would be a good idea. This 3-year contract, his old one was 1 year, and unless you were affirmatively notified that it was renewed, it was terminated. And so this one would be a 3-year contract, an increase of $5,000 for the first year. The second year, increase of $5,000. The third year then would remain the same. And $15,000 of that comes from the township. I fully believe that the money that we're paying on this contract is an excellent investment and is one that has returned great return on investment for the work that Dennis has done. We'd like to continue to have him here working for us, and I'm recommending that we move it forward.
And this one is increasing as well, by 15,000?
No.
10.
Five this year.
Okay.
Next year, another 5. The third year, that there is no increase in the third year of it.
Does the township, but the township only gives us the 15. What they're giving us does not increase.
No.
And if you remember, the original contract had about a $30,000 contribution from a separate group of
Correct.
local business people that have now exited. So yeah, our costs
Well,
percentage-wise
and
have
also
gone up.
the increase, we took on the increase last
Yes.
year, which is
Right.
fine. Brian, and Tim, I'm just questioning because under section 4, it says 95,000 for the full contract year of 2024. And then
100,000.
100,000 for 25 and 26.
Yes.
So it's going up 5,000 for 2024, and then it's going up an additional 5 for those 2 years, correct? I'm reading that, okay.
Oh, so it is 15,000.
No. The amount, it's 95,
Yeah,
then 100,
yeah.
and the final year is 100. 95,
Oh, okay. I thought you
100.
said it was another 5,000. I don't, by the way, I'm missing
The
those
way that
pages
it's
too.
written.
Oh, really?
It's going up 5,000 from this year to next year, and then it's going up another 5,000 for the following 2 years. So it's a
Oh,
total
okay,
of
okay. We need
10,000.
All right. That's what I thought you
Yeah.
said. Okay,
Correct.
good. No, I don't need that.
Okay.
The only question I have, though, because since the issue with the township was brought up, every time we've looked at this contract, we've also looked at renewing the MOU with the township. And I don't know, I haven't seen the MOU in a while, whether there's an expiration date on that. So do we need to renew that? Can somebody check to make
Yeah.
sure that's still?
My understanding, and I think Tim might know too, but from talking to the mayor, I think the townships expressed their interest in renewing it, and they would be willing to do this. I don't think they've given us the official 24 through 26 yet. I think that's, this would kind of be predicated on that, I believe, but we would,
Well-
we would like to get that before we finalize this.
Yeah, I'm just saying, do we need to have a signed MOU with the township stating that? Maybe the reason we changed it last time was because it no longer included the business component. I don't know, maybe we don't. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure the wording on it, whether it continued or it had an end date to
Yeah, I
the
don't know.
MOU. I do not know.
And this does require a township signature on it as well.
Okay.
Now, for some reason, it lists Jim DePaula, Ravenna Township trustee.
So what percentage was the township paying?
Not a
They
percent, a
paid
percent amount.
15,000.
It's a set dollar amount.
It's a set dollar, $15,000.
15?
Yeah.
Thousand.
Yeah, 15.
15,000.
So, I'm just curious, so how much time then do they get for, is there like a time difference of they're getting, they're paying 15,000 and now we're gonna pay the remaining balance. So does the township get like a third of his time, or how, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if it works.
I don't know if he allocates his time down to,
His base office is here, so he
Right.
sets up base here. He does meet with them sometimes, but it's more of a meeting. He doesn't really set up shop there very often, so.
I mean, is he actively,
So he does work on stuff that affects some, well, and it's hard to say too, because some stuff affects both entities. Like one of the big things he's gonna be working on this next year is the JED,
Yeah.
the
Right. So that's
Ravenna
helping
JED.
both,
So
right,
that's gonna be
okay.
both, so how do you break that down, whose benefits more?
I was just curious how all that,
There's definitely more time spent on the city, but as far as, we haven't asked him to really track, and turn in anything with a sheet, or make that part of the agreements. So,
I think we're glad that the township wants to continue to participate with us on it.
it was
You
supposed,
know,
to be a Ravenna community
Yeah.
thing, that's how it was set up.
Yeah, when the entity of the business has dropped out for
Yeah.
30,000.
That was more of a startup, I believe, and kinda,
and he's proven, I mean, he's
Oh,
built business.
without a
and stuff.
doubt.
I'm not doubting that at all, I was just asking a question.
yeah.
Okay, you okay to send it forward?
Yes.
Matt? Okay. Next item we have is reestablishing a water plant position. And with us tonight, we have the pleasure of having our new water plant superintendent here, Amy Wilson. And I don't know if all of you have met Amy. Have you? Has everyone met Amy?
Yes.
No. Okay, welcome. Hate to put you on the spot by that, but we're glad you're here, and we're going to be talking about that position.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. This is city council here, Amy. Did you have a formal presentation that you're wanting to make? I had some introductory comments, or do you want to just go ahead with your comments?
Well, I was just gonna, I didn't know exactly how this was all gonna go, so I was gonna do a little introduction with just some of the things that.
As a first-time visitor to city council, you have the floor. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So as they mentioned in the introduction, I am the water plant superintendent, Amy Wilson. I'm here today to talk about the 10th operator position that was removed from contract, just removed from the books. So in 2013, we had 10 full-time operators, and we had 3 part-time staff at the water plant. And through economic hardships of the city of Ravenna, that 10th full-time position was removed, and then the 3 part-time positions were also removed from contract from everywhere. So completely removed off the books. So now we have 9 full-time operators and 1 full-time position that is shared with the wastewater plant. So my goal tonight is to get you to reestablish a 10th water plant position. One of the concerns of the EPA when they did our survey in August was that they were concerned about our staffing coverage to meet contingency planning. Contingency planning covers all of the unexpected things that might pop up at a water plant. As we handle it right now, we call people in if they can make it into the plant. So we got to go down a list. So that takes time. It takes time for someone to drive from their, from their house or from whatever activity that they're doing to come into the plant. So we're losing precious time if we had an emergency. If we had an extra operator position where there'd be more overlap with some of the off-shift positions where there's not as much staff anyways, we would be able to better meet the contingency planning that we have. And that would be anything from equipment failures, inclement weather, unplanned absences. Those are the type of things that contingency planning would cover. It also would provide us greater freedom to provide opportunities for our staff, such as additional certifications. Within the water treatment plant and wastewater plant, you can earn laboratory certifications. A full certification, you can have a full certification in chemical testing, you can have a full certification in bacterial testing. Both are great assets to the plant. However, they require additional monthly quality control. That's required by the EPA. So that's time that's spent inside the lab and not monitoring the plant. So as of right now, we've been kind of limiting that to day shift. However, just due to circumstances, we have 2 individuals right now that are trying to get their full certification that work afternoons. So having an additional staff member would allow for that freedom to do the mandatory testing to maintain those licenses. Also, it's going to allow us greater ease to fill overtime positions. And this overall is going to help us prevent burnout of staff. There's been times where we've had to call staff in 2 to 3 times a week to cover an overtime position. And that's a lot. You work 16 hours, you feel it. You're tired. Regardless of, you get the rest in between. You come in, you're just like, ugh. So to prevent burnout is actually going to improve job performance. And also, it's going to help our operators have greater job satisfaction. There really is something to be said about the work-life balance, where I'm not calling someone in when they're having dinner with their family, or if they're out doing something fun in Cleveland, having to come in and work an overtime. So yeah, that's why I'm here tonight. I just, I want to speak up for my operators who I've seen work 2 to 3 overtimes a week. I myself have did that. I know what it feels like. So I think reestablishing this 10th position, it's an investment, but it really is a great asset to our water plant. So I'm hoping you all consider.
I have,
So go ahead.
would this be required first a water license 1, or would it give time if someone doesn't have that to achieve that?
They would be given time to achieve that if they don't already have it.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to mention also that back regarding the cuts, from 1999 to 2013, we had 7 water plant operators up until 2013. In 2013, we cut that back to 6, and that position was never brought back then since 2014. We've remained at that number. Bringing in another water plant operator is also important because of the amount of overtime that we're having to give right now to cover the plant. Because we need 24-hour workers there, and we're at kind of a minimum staffing on it. When we have vacation, personal time, et cetera, we have to bring in at overtime. Right now, to date, in 2023, we have covered for 29 weeks of vacation time, personal time, and sick leave with overtime. So we've done 29 entire weeks at overtime to cover, so that we have adequate staffing of the plant. Other questions?
So we have 9 full-time.
Yeah.
How many people are there at one time?
We have the most staff available during day shift.
Okay.
That's because maintenance is there, maintenance has their own helper. There are days where we have overlap because our operators work 10 hours.
Okay.
So they've got the 4 days. So the most staff that we would ever have at any one time is on day shift.
Okay.
The lead chemist, that type of thing. And then on afternoons, we're limited to 10 hours, an hour overlap where there's day shift, an hour overlap where there's night shift. And the same thing for nights, there's an hour with afternoons, hour with day shift. So the rest of the time, they're by themselves. So we are kind of limiting those staff members. Like I said, if they are getting the laboratory certifications, they get a very narrow window to try
Sure.
to get all of their testing done if they want additional laboratory certifications. And for some people, that's too much of a risk. If they're not monitoring City Park Tower, those levels drop like drastically. They got to be on the phone calling someone, hey, we got a main break, to alert other areas of the city to look for issues.
So Cheryl, Christie, I'm sorry. At any one time, 9.5 people, that includes the maintenance and the
During
chemist,
shifts.
yeah, and the water plant operators. So they're not all water operators, it's other employees there at that time, yes.
So I'm just confused about the changes, because I thought you said it went from 7 to 6.
We were just talking about water plant operators. The 9.5 number was all the workers that are out there including the chemist, the maintenance persons,
but-
the other.
Okay, so the point is, adding this position brings us back to pre-2014 levels?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
In our water funds, you know, it's generally a healthy fund.
Ye-
you know.
Yes, it's always been in the black, and I'll just add this in support of that. Okay, at one time I was in that department, and the reason I'm saying that is on the certain shifts that you mentioned, there's only one operator there. That's correct, Jet? Okay, I wanted to make sure I was saying that right. And when something goes wrong, you have to continue doing what your normal operations are. And then if there's a problem, you need to get on the phone and contact someone when you're there by yourself. And I believe myself that there should be that second person there, not just to assist, but, and then when have to do certain chemical checks on the hour within so many minutes of the hour, and something goes wrong, you can't let those chemical checks go undone, as an example. Because if you let those go undone, well, those reports go to the EPA, and you don't want those questioned, as an example. I'll stop right there.
No, I think based on the recommendations from the EPA plus the overtime, I'm okay with moving this one forward.
Yeah, I understand their position.
Yeah.
The help, I think they'd be grateful for that.
And it has the support of Kay and the mayor also, the increase in this position.
But, so what, I guess the question is, what is the position? I see in the payroll ordinance, this water plant operator.
Water plant operator.
And there's 6, and
Yes.
so we're adding a 7th.
Yes.
Okay. And that's all at the same pay range and all that other
Yes.
stuff? Okay.
Well, they getting their one license, and then they have the opportunity to get a 2, and then later, if so desired, a 3. And the incentive for that is, if I'm not mistaken, each license is a 5% increase. Okay.
Okay, we'll move it forward. Okay, thank you, Amy. We'll see you next month's meeting.
Nice to finally meet you.
Okay, we have 2 more items. The next one we're going to do is we're going to jump down to the finance director qualifications. Is it on there? Is it on your agenda?
Yeah, but you skipped one.
I did, because I thought we'll do a quick one and then a longer discussion one.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
You thinking this is going to be quick?
In 2019, voters approved a change to the charter to make the finance director an appointed position. The vote eliminated all of Article 9 of the charter. The charter now says, "There shall be a finance director who shall be appointed by the mayor with the consent of council, and the finance director shall have qualifications as may be fixed by ordinance." That's all it says now. It's
Majority of council, I think.
majority of council, yeah. And so that's what the change has been. So tonight, what our goal is to look at qualifications as may be fixed by ordinance for the finance director. Now, the way the wording is, we could say, we choose not to have any qualifications. It says may. We could, and it would be completely open.
Well, we already do.
Yes, we do, and it's in Section 234 of the codified ordinances. That's the thing that will be changing,
Yeah.
the qualifications for the finance director. Under the old method, there was one, they needed to have a bachelor's degree in finance or accounting, and if they didn't have that, to get on the ballot, they needed to have 5 years of experience in municipal government accounting. And so that's how somebody got on the ballot. So what's before us is what we want to put in to the ordinances for qualifications, and that's our goal. In front of you, you have a sheet of paper that was given to us by Heather, and in it, she talked about the minimum qualifications. Now, there's just 2 listed, and does everybody have that sheet of paper, yeah? The 2 that are listed, first is possession of a bachelor's degree from an accredited university or college in accounting or finance or related field. And the second one, a minimum of 5 years' experience in governmental finance and accounting at a high management or supervisory level. In talking with Heather today and discussing this, a thought, and I don't know if it goes all the way to a recommendation, but a thought is on the second qualification is to just stop it at the end of minimum of 5 years' experience in governmental finance and accounting. I don't know if saying at a high management or supervisory level is an important qualification for it. We may want to keep it in there. How do we define a high management or supervisory level? Don't know. So it's up to us, and so.
But this is a change. I mean, what we had before to be allowed on the ballot was either or
Yes.
the degree or the 5 year. Now we're asking for both.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yes, and that is a change, but the question is, do we think that's a good change? Is that something that we want?
Well, one way.
Are we not going to find someone if we have those 2 requirements?
Yeah, I mean, one way would be just to have the degree requirement, and then the second one would be a desired as opposed to minimum requirement.
I would think you'd have to have some type of management experience, since you're gonna have 3 or 4 people
Underneath you.
in this position.
And that's the question as council that we're having to decide. We could.
The management
say-
part is different than the minimum number of years.
Right, and that's also up, we're having to decide it. It's us, so that's the purpose of our discussion tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, here's my thought real quick.
Yes.
When you have an elected position, I think the purpose of that was just to put some real basic rudimentary type, this is the absolute minimum. We don't want someone in here who has 0 clue what they're doing. So
To get on the ballot.
Yeah, as long as they have some kind of government, they got some kind of degree, they got something that qualifies them. Now, if you're looking at doing it, hiring someone, I think you definitely up that requirement. I think you didn't want to be too exclusive, like when you're looking at, someone who's on the elected ballot. You're just trying to put something in there so they're not going to blow up the place, basically. Now, I think when you're hiring someone, you want to be a little bit more
Well,
specific what you want.
But here's the difference. I mean, someone could run with those minimum qualifications.
Yeah.
Without the 5 years, or with the 5 years and not the degree.
Right.
And there's no quality control. There's no review of the person other than people voting for them.
Right.
Right.
What I'm saying is you could put in the minimum years as a desired, and then it becomes a judgment call. And what if someone comes in and only has 4 years, but they're like a star accountant? If you put it in as a minimum 5 years, that's a threshold.
Yeah.
And then I think it's harder to justify hiring somebody who doesn't have that.
And when Heather talked about this, when I was talking to her about it anyway, she thought like the CPA would be one that would be a preferred qualification, but maybe not mandated. You would like to get a CPA,
Right, well-
but maybe you can't get a CPA, but they check all the other boxes, so you're like, well, they're the best of the group. That was one of the ones that would be a good preferred one.
And I think
Some-
all council can do is give you a guidance of what we think, but ultimately,
Well, the mayor's going to choose, but we
Yeah.
set the qualifications. That's the way that it is
That's what I'm
written now
saying.
in law.
right.
In other
So-
words, if someone came in who had the degree, but only 4 years of experience, and the mayor really wanted to hire him, guess what? It's against our code of ordinances. He can't do it. If we say
So
minimum.
you'd like a little bit more flexible on the second statement?
I think so.
What about or? Do you want someone to
Well,
come into this position
I
who
want-
has 4 years of experience in a finance office but doesn't have a degree?
You know-
Because we have lots of people that work in finance offices that do not have a degree that might be applying for that job.
Well, that, you may be right about that. I'm not an expert in this area, but my career has been in higher education, and I value the degree. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be a minimum number, but 5 seems like a high.
Five seems like a high number.
I kind of understand what you're saying, Rob. I don't think there's hardly any finance directors of any city that would, or most any city that would ever not want a degree. I think
Right.
that'd be very minimal.
Yeah.
The experience and the management stuff is kind of up for debate. I think there could be a little flexibility there. You could do an and/or, they could have management experience or government experience. I mean, because like Tammy, if you look at her, she came from, she had a lot of accounting experience, had a degree in it, but she didn't come from the government world. So there's been a lot of learning for her, but she's been a great person to have in here,
Yeah, and she wouldn't qualify.
So the question is then too, on the second one, whether it should be governmental finance and accounting or just finance and accounting.
And do government preferred, maybe, with CPA preferred, those kind of things.
Well, if you change the wording to what Rob was saying, then you get some flexibility in the whole second paragraph. So am I understanding that right?
Of saying,
Whether they have 5 years or of government finance experience or just accounting in general, then they could be a decision by HR or the mayor
yeah,
in terms of.
I think we're all in agreement that we want the possession of the bachelor's degree in finance or accounting, that's a given. The second is how big this statement should be, whether the years should just be a recommendation, or it should maybe just say experience in finance and accounting at a high management or supervisory level.
I like
Prefer.
preferred minimum of 5 years. And then that, like Rob was saying, it leaves a little bit.
If it's preferred, then we can.
We want people applying that have that experience.
So by preferred, it could be less.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so I guess the question, though, is, are we providing the opportunity for a preferred? I mean, because the way I read our ordinance as it is now, it just simply says qualifications, which sounds like a threshold. So we either leave out or we reduce the experience quotient of this.
So you feel that it's saying shall have qualifications as may be fixed. That's saying having a statement about preferred would not be concrete enough?
I don't think so.
So you're back to, you just would say only that they need to have
My preference would be a smaller number of years,
Closer to 3?
maybe 3 years.
Could we?
And
so-
not in municipal or governmental finance, but I would say 3 years supervisory experience in finance would be my preference.
and just make it not government finance, but
Right.
it's 3 years, Matt, something that you could live with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, we don't get, my point is, because we did get a fuller job description.
Yes.
Fuller job description could have preferred 5 years in, I mean, it could have other wording where the mayor can then choose somebody who has well above that threshold and would be guided to do that.
Okay, so we do want to
We're
have,
making this more complicated than it needs to be.
well, we'll come back next month, right? Is that, will we have enough time if we come back next month?
This doesn't start until April, right?
Yeah, my term goes
See-
through March 31st, correct?
Yeah. So we do have time.
Yeah, we're pretty much in agreement, that those two statements are okay. We want to tweak the second one a little bit, and then we'll go from there. I may well want to try to bring it back next week for Committee of the Whole with those minor changes in it. Is that okay, Matt and Christie?
Yeah.
Okay, all
But
right.
I do think, though, what our job is, not necessarily this, because this is a job description, I mean, it says right on top, is to look at 23402, the wording there and how we're going to change that.
My understanding is that what we will do is this wording of saying that we want them to be what I just read off about possession of a bachelor's degree. We're going to say the qualifications for treasurer will be possession of this and that.
Right.
And that's all that will
We're
be
gonna
in
plug it into the-
23402.
We're going to, yeah, okay, that's fine.
That's all that's going to be in 23402.
Okay, all right.
Okay. All right, so we'll bring something back next week on that. Okay. And
That was supposed to be the short one. Just pointing this out.
okay. Next one that's on the agenda is one we're going to talk about for a few minutes, increased staffing levels in the fire department. Historically, as you know, we started as a discussion about this almost 2 years ago when we were talking about applying for the SAFER grant and the number of positions that's adequate and acceptable and appropriate staffing for the fire department. As you know, our current staffing on it is 6 people per shift, the captain, lieutenant, and 4 firefighters on each of our 3 shifts. So we have a total of 18 people that we have on these shifts. Although we schedule for that, we fill whenever we fall below 4. So we schedule for 6, we fill below 4. And so that's the staffing that we've done for a number of years. Discussion that we've had in the past, our call numbers are up, our EMT, what is the right term? Paramedic calls have gone through the roof. You know, we have a number of additional calls that we have. And the mayor has requested that we put this on as an agenda item to begin to discuss whether increased staffing is something that we're wanting to look at in the future. And so with that, I will open the floor for some discussion of that topic.
Okay, is there any comments that you, either one of the firefighters in the room might make? Chief?
I'll
or
start,
yeah.
and then they can bring into it as well. So to back up, like in the 1980s, EMS was brought into the city to provide emergency services in that regard. Back then, you had to just be, one person had to be EMT, and then you could have a driver. The laws of Ohio changed, and then you had to have multiple EMTs on that squad, and then it went from the level of care of EMS in the EMT, which is someone who render first aid kind of care, to paramedics, which is ALS, which is advanced life support with drugs and cardiac medicines and whatnot. We have gone from, back then, from 1 ambulance to multiple ambulances to having 2 ambulances, based on the increase of call volume. The problem is, we never increased the personnel. So when EMS was brought in, we had 6 guys on a shift, and 2 guys were running an ambulance. Now we're running 2 ambulances, pretty much 10 times a day, and we're still running with the same 6 guys with a 4-man minimum. There is a great portion of the day that we are completely unstaffed, around 30% of the day where both ambulances are out, and probably a greater portion of 50% where we only have 2 people there, even if it's not an EMS call, to provide fire services to our community. This is what kind of got zinged with ISO, because we can't staff either entity properly unless we increase what we're doing.
Can I jump in? Can you talk about the ISO, how they, when a fire call goes out, because that's all they're looking at, right? They're not looking at.
They want ambulance staffed with a minimum of 4 personnel, and we cannot do it. Even increasing, in no disrespect, even if we increase with another person per shift, we are not meeting the numbers, but we are doing a step in the right direction that will help us with our ISO review.
So if a fire call goes out, 4 guys go on the engine, whatever it might be, and then you have an EMS call that goes out right after. How's that? How many guys are on the?
We have 4 guys on the engine, and you ask a good question, because it's not just our community, but we provide mutual aid as we receive mutual aid. So here's a perfect example. About 2 weeks ago, Woodstown had a house fire. They called us for an engine. We sent our engineer with 4 personnel to provide them to reciprocate the same courtesy that they would give us. During that timeline, we got hit with multiple calls. The unfortunate thing is, most of the other communities are also in Woodstown. It took almost 40 minutes for an ambulance to get to that call, and thankfully, it was non-emergent for that service. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but we come to a timeline of what services do we want to provide for our community and what services we don't. And we can't pick and, we can't dictate or choose, this is when that call is gonna come down and then we can staff for it later. It's just how the nature of the beast is. And there's times that, more times than not, that we are not adequately staffed for what we need to do.
And you've been really saving with the overtime, with what you, when you have brought on that extra person, that from the last time, you've already proven where you cut your costs, correct?
So,
I have a question about that, but go ahead.
Oh,
So to present onto that, talking with the mayor and Brian, finance was involved, and actually collective bargaining was involved in the conversation. To be fair with everybody, how do we for this? The mayor said he feels, and I don't want to put words in his mouth because he's not here, I don't think this would have been put on the agenda
Right.
to attract the chief if he didn't feel comfortable with it. Minimally, he said that we could probably, if worst case scenario, without grants or anything, that we could just do it out of the general fund. Because I said, if we can do it out of the general fund without looking at other avenues, are we gonna kibosh this? He said, no, not necessarily, not at all. I said, okay. I told him that if we put the increase in personnel on, I could give back to my money of my overtime budget to help offset some of the cost of the wage. I can't pay for it all, but I can pay for about $50,000 to $60,000 of the cost. There's other avenues that we have looked at. I don't really want to go into detail with that because unless we do runs to another community, there's funds that we receive from that community. The funds that we should be receiving from that community, it is costing us more to provide a service than we are than what we're bringing
So
back.
it's costing us money to provide a service with our taxpayers' money, basically. So
So what we
therefore-
collect off of an EMS run, whether it's in the city of Ravenna or outside to Charlestown, I'll just say Charlestown, the majority of our clientele is Medicare or Medicaid. It's about 75 to 80% of what we go off of. The remainder is private insurance, medical mutual, whatever else you have. The Medicare and Medicaid are reimbursing us on an ALS-2 run, which is like cardiac drugs, roughly $200 of a $950 charge. The agreement that we had since 2019 with Charlestown was to compensate us for the difference. There's no way Charlestown can give us $100,000 plus a year for the 200 plus runs we run that we're not collecting from the residents. So one thing is, one avenue we could look at is, since the contract's from 2019, I don't know if it has an expiration date, is maybe they can have the funding to offset one of the positions that we're asking for. The mayor already said, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but you could go back to the minutes, that if we failed on the grant, which we applied for twice, he felt very comfortable at the time that maybe we can put one person on. What I'm asking for is if we could put one person on through that, I can make cuts in my budget, and we can make an agreement or not. Even if that doesn't work, we can still go through what we have in the general fund. The general fund right now, and Brian can explain better than I do, has a monthly care of about $120,000 a month. $30,000 would cover the 3 guys that we're putting on.
Yeah, well, we've introduced several different items right here now. We've gone into a couple different ways. We've gone into funding, we've gone into, we're wanting to kind of stay at staffing if we could. 3 additional people would cost about $300,000. Okay, right now, the overtime budget in 2020, we had about $172,000 in overtime we paid in 2020. So we're paying $170,000 of overtime. Yes, we may be able to reduce overtime by bringing on additional staffing, but another determiner will be at what level we replace at, whether we stay at 4 or if we bump it up to 5. If we go to 7 and then we replace to 5, we still might be at the same spot overtime-wise. So that's just a thought. Adding 3 people is increasing the department size by 17%. 17%, which is a hefty amount. But 3 people also fit well in our structure of 3 shifts, 3 days, people,
The other
yes.
thing that we have to recognize, and Amy brought it up with the water department, you're looking at guys who are running 24-hour shifts, running calls, 10 calls a day, and each call takes anywhere between an hour to 2 hours, and even longer if we can't get a bed down at the hospital. You're going almost 24 hours with little to no sleep, and then if someone calls off, you're asked to work the next day on overtime to be on an ambulance, and nobody wants to do it. You want to talk about longevity of your career, you're burning out, and that's why our turnover has been what it's been.
That's part of my question, and maybe gearing it towards you too, that PAFERS came out in 2010, and at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, it said 12 was in 2010.
They said we should add a 9-man minimum.
What did ISO say?
ISO doesn't give you a minimum. They're just telling you a minimum of your engine should be no less than 4.
I guess the question, does 3 solve the problems that you're having, or are we going to
No.
have this discussion
No,
again?
3
Could I interject also? I'm sorry.
3
Go
does
ahead,
not-
answer the
3
question.
does not ultimately solve our staffing issue, but it's a step in the right direction. It's better than the change that we have not addressed in over 35 years. 35 years ago, we ran 1,400 calls with the same staff, and today we're running 3,500 calls with the same staff. We've more than tripled our call volume with the same amount of personnel, the same minimums.
You refer to the study in 2009. In the study in 2009, in the section on staffing of the fire departments, they looked at 3 alternate ways of funding or staffing the department. On 2 of the 3 ways of funding, the level that we were at was deemed adequate. On the 3rd one, the 1.5 method, it showed that we needed more. So the different staffing analysis look at things in different ways. The one at which we met it was in the population one. Our population is 12,000 people, and so it meets it that way. I'm not saying our staffing is adequate right now. I'm just saying that 2000 report had multiple ways of looking at staffing. Other input from other folks on staffing want to talk about?
No.
Yeah, you can come up and give your name, address.
Hello, my name is Matthew Bowery. I'm actually
President.
the president of Local 1340, the IAFF local union here for the city of Ravenna. And it's unfortunate under the circumstances, but I come to you this evening with a problem and not a solution. I come to you asking for a solution. What we do as our job description has changed greatly. It's changed greatly in the last 3 years since COVID hit. If I can just look at the EMS side of what we do for a moment. In Northeast Ohio as a whole, you've had a systemic breakdown, I would say, of the private ambulance industry. Private ambulances in Northeast Ohio are no longer going to residents' homes to take them to the hospital. They're no longer available to transport from nursing facilities after 4 p.m. during the week, and they don't transport at all during the weekends. How people still need to go to the hospital. This is remedied by all these facilities now calling 911. Things that were handled in private industry, they just don't handle those, that workload anymore. Add into this ER overcrowding, which then increases wait times at the ERs, increasing the time that our ambulances are out of service. And like Mark had said, the reality is about 30% of the day, when you call 911 here in the city, you have a 1/3 chance of that dispatcher saying, sorry, unfortunately, we don't have anyone available to send you. You're gonna have to wait, and we'll try and find somebody from a neighboring community. That's just how we're currently operating the fire department on the EMS side. But the reality is, if 30% of the day we don't have enough ambulances to send out, then a greater portion of that day, we are inadequately staffed for fire coverage. Now, we have mutual aid contracts, automatic aid contracts with surrounding communities, but as you heard with the, earlier, I was speaking about dispatch centers and that, our closest community is no longer dispatched by us. That was a decision that they had made on their own, but the reality of how that affects us is now we no longer have open communications on the same channel with them, and especially at night, you're looking at least 10+ minutes before receiving any sort of aid coming from them. And the reality is, more often than not, we are faced with having to call mutual aid from communities 2-3 communities away. Sometimes we're faced with having to decide, do we call an ambulance from outside of the county? Or is it quicker for us to just wait at the hospital, transfer that patient, clean that ambulance real quick, and then us come from that other call? And I worry that this is an exponential problem that we're not going to catch up with, unfortunately.
Thank you, Matt. And that is an issue that the chief has talked with us about, of not adequate coverage there, and also the whole problem of having to wait at the hospital until we get a bed, and it puts a team out of service there at the hospital for hours sometimes, and it's a real problem for us there. Yeah. Okay, good, thank you. Other comments?
I'll just agree, I will agree with the proposal that more staffing is needed.
We don't have a proposal in front of us.
Okay.
The mayor is going to bring back a proposal for next month's meeting. As Chief Chappell mentioned, back during the discussion when this came up 2 years ago, there was talk about if we did not get the SAFER grant, that there would be increased staffing. And so we just, we're looking to move forward with that. So with that, I guess we're going to move this on to next month, to next month's committee meeting. And at that time, the mayor should have a recommendation for us of how many additional positions he wants to put in. Other questions, comments on it?
If we were to go forward and move to bring these positions, we also would have to amend the ordinance that goes along with that to increase our staffing.
Yeah, the payroll ordinance. Yeah, because it lists right now 18. I think it's revised that it has the chief, the fire marshal, the secretary, and 16.
There's 12 firefighters.
12 firefighters, 3.
It says no more than.
Yeah, 3 captains and 3 lieutenants.
So it would be no more than 15, if that's where
Yes.
we're headed with 3, because
Yeah.
you gave the increase percentage-wise.
Yeah.
So this tonight was just for discussion. The mayor didn't, Brian, have the numbers prepared. I thought from our talking prior to this, because I've been talking with them about this prior to all this, it was in support of the 3 people.
Again, I'm kind of like Mark, I guess. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but yes, that was my understanding as
That's what
well,
he told me.
that we had at least a soft recommendation that we felt comfortable with that, me, him, we all
You
kind of
haven't
talked.
actually had the number or
But-
anything submitted to you, correct?
The mayor did not give me a number on it.
I don't think he made it official, but he was in support.
Do we have to
Loosely.
have his recommendation for us to,
Make a decision.
make a decision on it to go to the next level, or is this,
I would want to,
I mean, is
Yeah,
that
he's in
council?
charge of the safety force.
yeah.
Yeah, he is, the mayor has been the safety director for decades.
Well, I just, hate to hold it up longer than we have to,
No,
if
you're-
that was his thing, I mean, that was just.
Well,
Sounds like
if we
there's
come,
agreement.
if we come back next month with the number, then it will quickly go through it and would be in effect in January. I think on the tracking sheet, what did it say on the tracking sheet?
I put it down as.
It didn't have a number.
Is an emergency, and the reason why I asked for emergency is the recruitment of personnel. If you don't act fast, people are being absorbed in other municipalities.
It's a process.
Yeah. Is it true, Chief, that we only had one person that left this past year, though? Only one person left the fire department last year.
Greg retired in February, and
But I mean, a person that left to go to another district. Just one,
the last one was, Nate Martin.
yeah.
So yes, that was, and Huffman, so the year prior.
Year prior.
two to one.
Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, Amy, but also I did not have a set number. And so I don't feel comfortable going forward without the mayor's recommendation of a set number, which we can handle pretty quickly when he's back. But his direction to me was, let's start the discussion, because we've not had this discussion now for 2 years, I think, or a year and a half, 2 SAFER grants ago. Right. It was 2 SAFER grants ago that we had the big discussion. Okay? So we'll do that. And management update? Nothing. We're all ready to adjourn at 8:17.